What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Celtics Daily Channel with me, Mike Zakarian. I hope you had a great weekend. Apologies for the day off on Friday, but those muscle relaxers were hitting so hard. We needed to take the day off and be horizontal. But we're back. We're back. We got it's really a quiet part of the NBA season. It has got like the news has gotten a little bit softer. There's less speculation happening right now. We're just kind of easing in as the players get ready to report to camp, which I believe we're like just a few weeks away. The season sneaks up on you pretty quickly, especially with the NFL season starting a little bit later this year. It feels like all of a sudden the NBA is ready to go. But before we get into some of the scheduling stuff and some Klay Thompson news, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hype it, do all of those things. Do all the things. All right. So as outlined before, right, the Celtics have 16 sets of back-to-backs this season. All right, so that's brutal. That is like, I believe if it's not the most, it's like the second most in the league. It's just kind of out of control, and we're gonna go through them and see like what let's at like how bad is it, right? Like how many times are the Nets involved? How you know what I'm saying? Like how soft are some of these? So the first one is like right off the bat here. The 26th, we're taking on the Chicago Bulls at home, and then the Nets the next day at home. That's not too bad. You get the Bulls and the Nets back to back is fine. Both of the games being at home also very helpful, right? Those road back to backs hit a little bit differently, especially when you're traveling. This one, you get to at least like sleep in your bed. You get to sleep in your bed. That's not as bad. So again, yeah, the first one being, so sorry, I'm just going to pull up this schedule so I'm making sure I'm looking at it correctly. Yeah, so we got the 26th against Chicago, the 27th against the Nets. All right, so that's the first set. Second set, a little bit trickier, right? We're at Orlando and then at Houston the very next week. So to get hit with 4 games that early is kind of brutal, or 2 sets of back-to-backs that early is pretty brutal. But at least it's fresh legs. It's at the beginning of the season, right? You're not worn down yet, so this it feels like a let's assign some values to these, right? So we're gonna say we're 3-1 through our first 4. Then it gets real tough. So Tuesday, November 10th, our first time that we see Jaylen Brown against the Boston Celtics. It's on the front end of a back-to-back. So the 10th, they're taking on the 76ers on the road, and then they have to go ahead and go through customs and get to Toronto for the next day against we assume the Kawhi Leonard Los Angeles Clippers, right? The NBA is still dilly-dallying around making that decision, but all signs are pointing to the Toronto Raptors landing Kawhi Leonard. That is a brutal. So, like, yes, we were like Bulls and Nets. That's awesome. Sign me up for all the back-to-backs. Magic and Rockets a little friskier. And now the 76ers and Raptors on the road. It's also just like really tough for whatever reason. Toronto has a great home court advantage. If I had to, like, so far, and I honestly just like glancing ahead, this feels like it's going to be the worst one. It's still early in the season. I think that's just games like 11 and 12 at that point, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is this good content? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the 11th and that's actually crazy, though, to be 12 games into the season and already have 3 back-to-backs. Like, what are the scheduling guys doing? You can't spread that shit out? Okay, the fourth one is, again, just like a few days after that. Sunday, November 15th, they're at home at least again. And they get the Dallas Mavericks, which Dallas going to be a little friskier with Kyrie Irving, most likely playing basketball and spreading some incense around the court. But then it's the very next night, it's Orlando Magic. Both of these at home, which is kind of nice. Orlando benefiting from getting the Celtics on 2 back-to-backs in the first freaking full 30 days of the NBA season. But that one's a little bit better. Then back on the road again. This one I actually don't hate. It's a West Coast trip. It's the first time the Celtics are going west, like Fightful. They get the Sacramento Kings on Saturday, November 21st. Now, good news, Sacramento Kings, dog shit. They're going to be bad all season long, whether they want to or not. Who knows who's going to be playing for that team? Sabonis should be back in action. Zach LaVine should be back in action. No one to play defense. If you're staying up late to watch some League Pass, well, not League Pass, but to watch the Celtics game, I have to watch League Pass because I live in New York. You get to see Darius Acuff Jr., so you get to at least see a rookie be fun. The Celtics should win that game. Then after so this is the fifth, this is the back end of the fifth one, the Golden State Warriors. So like Steph Curry at home, always a little scary. Jimmy Butler won't be playing basketball. Kristaps Porzingis, who knows what his health will be like. Big Al Horford, little AARP action. So that one, I don't know. I'm not as scared with this back to back. Like that feels like a split if Golden State is good, but again, Sacramento, so bad at basketball. Okay, then here we go. Sunday, December 13th. This is fun. All right. This. Oh no, excuse me, I skipped one. Gee, this is how many they have. The sixth one. It's Spurs and Mavericks. Both of these on the road. So again, Dallas benefiting from another back to back. Feels like they're cheating. Feels like they're cheating. San Antonio, obviously a tough game. Dallas, they still should be fine. They should be fine with Dallas. After that one, okay, here we go. Finally, some good news. We're back on the road. Well, one on the road, one at home. This is the first time it's like 1-1. You're in New York against the Brooklyn Nets on Sunday, and then on Monday you get the Washington Wizards. And now I know Wizards are a little revamped with Trey and Anthony Davis. Who knows which one of them will be playing? AJ DeBonce is there, okay. But again, you should, like, if you were going to take two, it takes two, baby. Hey, they should win both of those, right? Okay, then we get into the new year. So that's 7 of the 16 back-to-backs before January 1. On January 1, it's at Utah Jazz, at Portland Trail Blazers. Both of those teams are going to be a little bit challenging. Utah, tough to play them in the road because of the altitude. Portland, not really tough to play on the road. This feels like a 2-0 run, hopefully. Then Wednesday, January 20th, this is the Jaylen Brown revenge game is actually on the 21st. So the 20th, that sucks, actually. Both times we played, the first 2 times we played the 76ers, I don't know if it's the first 2 times, but the first time and then the first time at home are both on back-to-backs, one front end, one back end. Indiana Pacers, they get Halliburton, right? So that's the first game. 76ers the second game. That's a brutal one. Even though both of those are at home, that sucks. Then they're on the road in February against the Hornets and then against Atlanta. Then they're at home against Denver Nuggets and Golden State Warriors. That's a tough one. They're on the road against OKC and Memphis, okay. Then at home for Memphis and OKC. That's crazy they flip-flop those, but okay. Then we got 3 left. So Tuesday, March 23rd, you get the Brooklyn Nets on the road. Then San Antonio Spurs at home. Not great. Miami Heat on the road. New Orleans Pelicans on the road. That's fine. And then Cavs on the road. Miami Heat at home. That's brutal, man. That is a brutal run of games, of back-to-backs, just out of control, man, out of control. A couple of softer ones early that hopefully, build some momentum. But again, Joe Mazzulla-led basketball teams have been like one of the best performing teams on front and back end of back-to-backs. This is when depth becomes important. This is when like the Ugos, the Baylors, the Jordan Walshes, maybe some Luka Garza gets some run. I expect, especially early on, for Tatum, whether he's not going to play a back-to-back or at least just get minutes monitored. I expect some sort of limitation on him after what, and like I know he had the whole offseason to like really ramp up and make sure his legs are exactly the same size now. But I would imagine after what we did in the spring where he's playing 40 minutes after coming back at a historic rate, then maybe we limit this a little bit more, right? We'll have to wait and see, though, how he handles it. But I would imagine he gets limited a little bit. Paul George, for sure, not going to be a guy that's going to be playing back-to-back, or he shouldn't be. If we want Paul George to play like at least 60 basketball games, for the love of Christ, please do not play him on back-to-backs. But yeah, listen, it's a brutal stretch of the schedule. Feels a little unfair, but if I recall, they had one of the softer schedules last year, and it's, payback, baby. I mentioned the Miami Heat quite a bit during that stretch. I think we faced them 2 or 3 times in that those back-to-backs. Miami, the only piece of NBA news that came since Russell Westbrook retired is that Klay Thompson has officially been bought out by the Dallas Mavericks and then almost immediately signed with the Miami Heat. It makes sense, right? Miami has just nobody to play guard. Right now, it's Davion Mitchell and Pelly Larson prior to the signing of Klay Thompson. Klay, obviously, on the back end of his career, was spending some time mostly coming off the bench for Dallas. I don't know. I'm like, yes, I think it's a good move because Miami needed some shooting. I don't think it actually changes too much unless all of a sudden you think Klay is going to get his ACL and Achilles and everything else that torn back from 5 years ago. Klay has been more of a cone on defense since the injuries. But granted, also has not played like real competitive basketball in the last couple of years. So I don't know. All of a sudden you put him in a shot to actually win some games. Maybe he can move a little bit better. Maybe we see him ramp it up a little bit more. But honestly, it just feels like you're going to see some like solid 3-point shooting. I don't even know if he starts. Like, do they go like Davion, Clay, and then Wiggins, Giannis, and Bam? I don't know. Or it's Davion and Pelly, and then Clay's coming off the bench. But regardless, they needed the shooting, and Clay can still chuck the ball. He's not peak Clay, of course, but I like what if Miami was desperate, man. You see Bradley Beal go back to the Clippers, and the fact that Bradley Beal was someone that they really, really needed just says all that needs to be said. I'm seeing Miami fans like circle the wagons like they just won the chip because they got Klay Thompson. Pass. No way, man. I don't think. I think it'd be shocking. And we'll do this really quickly. But if Miami, like, what teams are you taking Miami ahead of? And I know Giannis is nasty. I expect Giannis to have an incredible season. But do you think they get more regular season wins than the Boston Celtics? I'm gonna say no. More wins than the New York Knicks? I'm going to say no. More wins than the Cleveland Cavaliers who just picked up Peyton Watson? I'm going to say no. More wins than the Detroit Pistons? I'm still going to say no. More wins than the Toronto Raptors? I'm going to say no. More wins than the 76ers? I'm going to say no. So that at the bet, and now I'm still going to list off, ready, the Indiana Pacers? Well, I'm going to say no. That's 7. And there's still the Magic and the Hawks and the Hornets down there. So this is a play-in team. This is a playing team. Anybody that tells you otherwise is a liar. Speaking of liars, let's get into some of the chat from our most recent videos. Again, reminder, like, subscribe, hype, hype, hype. And let's see what you guys had for me on Thursday. Again, apologies for no video on Friday, but
to the Celtics
when I tell you I was down bad, honestly, can I just I wasn't even doing anything rough. This was on Wednesday. I wasn't even doing anything intense. It was like the warm-up part of my workout. And I was like, let me get a few leg extensions in. Let's warm up the lower back. Extended the legs. Boink! The back went nuts. I was walking around like something jammed up my butt for like a few days. But anyways, best sleep I've ever had in my life. Shout out Muscle Relaxers. Looking for a sponsor. Looking for a sponsor. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into the comments. Richard Shansky was saying agree on your your point guard rankings assessment. That's right. We were talking about Derek White, how he was ranked by Hoops Hype as the top 15 or at 15 for point guards. And I was saying he was probably closer to 10 based on the guys they had ahead of him. The Greek Ezeki said the Boston Ball Hogs won the Big 3 championship. Dude, who's on the Boston Ball Hogs? The Boston Ball Hogs. Who's on roster? Can't believe this is what I'm looking up, but it's August. All right, Jeremy Pargo is captain. Garland Green, Deshaun Stevens, alongside Ray Nixon and Quincy. Oh my God, head coach Gary Payton. Hell yeah, hell yeah! Congrats to the Bulldogs. Hang the banner, hang the banner. All right, what else we got here? Cavs have no defense, no balls, no heart. They are not a contender. That's from Oscar Colon. It's probably Cologne, but I like saying colon after saying balls. I think Cleveland is. I don't think they're a real championship contender, much like the Celtics. I think they're going to win a lot of regular season games, though. John is saying Ice Trey over Derek White. Yeah, man. Listen, dude. Maybe I'm too low on Trae Young since we haven't seen him play basketball in a long time, right? Because he didn't really play it all last year. I think it's usually a bad sign if you're supposed to be a top 10 point guard where your team's like, you know what, we're actually all set here. You know, although Celtics just did that with Jaylen Brown, so. User with a bunch of letters says you need to be able to share your screen when you're talking sometimes. You know, I would love to. You know something? I'll tell you. We're working on a live stream feature here for some in-game stuff, and we might be able to do some share screen for that. But you know what, though? That's good feedback. That is good feedback. Maybe we can mess around with that. Time Freedom says Memphis is an entering. Oh, speaking of freedom, Enos Freedom. That dude sucks at basketball and at life. Time Freedom says Memphis is an interesting spot. They have 19 players under contract for 167 milli. They need to cut 4 players and stay above 165. They need to make a few trades. If you were acting on the Celtics' behalf, what one Celtics would you trade for 2 Grizzlies players? Keeping the Celtics under the cap and giving the Grizzlies an excess of salary. I mean, it's Hauser, right? It is Hauser. Hauser's the one that would get moved. Well, let me actually pull up Spotrac. I feel like we did this not too long ago, but let me pull up the trade machine on Spotrac. Let's get the Celtics and the like. This is a great example of using share screen. I agree with you, but let me talk through it. Let's add Sammy Hauser to this deal. Sammy Hauser to Memphis. They also have a trade player exception, but I'm not going to mess around with that right now. Could we get Ty Jerome? That works. But then Boston must waive a player. But you said they want to do a 2-for-1. One of them's probably going to be bad. I would love to get Ty Jerome. And then can we get, like, what about an all Olivier Maxence Prosper? Let's see. He would have to go to Boston. That works. And then, but Boston's going to waive some guys. So if you do that, and then you waive Tucker DeVries or Milos Uzan, Mari Williams, I don't know. What do you guys? I would love Ty Jerome, man. I'm a Ty Jerome truther. Even though he had a rough postseason with the Cavs a couple seasons ago, I'm still a fan. The real Ghosty says, man, just scrolling through the comments, I can tell a lot of y'all ain't so confident for the boys this year. Brighten up. We could be the Wizards or Jazz or a bottom 5 team, but we're not. And Brad, we trust. Well, the Jazz aren't. Listen, Jazz are going to be a top 6 team in the Western Conference. You heard it here first. That's my favorite. My favorite. This is not a betting sponsor, but my favorite bets so far are the Jazz over 36.5 wins, the Jazz to be top 6 team in the Western Conference. Okay, then there's some people. Our Cheek, speaking of Cheek, says White was trash last year in the playoffs. Let's not act like he was an all-star caliber. Maxey owned him. Yeah, I feel like I've been pretty transparent about that. I didn't say he was better than Maxey, but I do think in that list that we were going over, Derek White still belongs there. And then I know there's a lot of like talk about his shooting, and will that come back? That's what like belonging to our Lord says Derek White can't shoot and is on his decline. I like listen, man. If he has a second stinking year, if he does that again for a second year, then sure, I'll listen to it a little bit more. But I'm still a believer. I'm still a believer. I believe in Derek White. I believe in Brad Stevens, and I believe in you. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Like, subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow.